Hi there, it's Nicole from Mama Elephant, and today I have a card featuring the new Woodland Gifts stamp set and dies, as well as the Grassy Trio die cut. And I've combined that with the Stitched Sky die cuts as well. To start my card, I am using some Surf Blue cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to run that through using the stitched rectangle from the basic die collection from Mama Elephant, and then I'm going to run through some green leaf cardstock from Simon Says Stamp as well with that same die. With the green die now, I am going to take one of the new Grassy Trio border dies and create some grassy borders to start my scene. I've laid out a couple of the sentiments there from the Woodland Gifts stamp set so that I can make sure I leave enough room for my stamping. And then I will die cut. I only die cut one of the borders there, but I ended up taking the other side of that Grassy Trio and cutting two. I felt like it really needed two grassy borders so that I could tuck the little animals and images into that scene a little bit better. So there are the two die cuts that I got from that one rectangle now, and I'll just layer those there so that I have somewhere to tuck in all these little cute critters and images. Next, I am using My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink to stamp the images that I'll be using for my card. This is a great ink to use for Copic coloring. I love that it gives such a nice, very dark black, nice outline to color. Some of the images I'm stamping more than once, not that I'm using all of them more than once, but they're new stamps. They've never been inked before. Sometimes I find that you get a better stamped image if you stamp it more than once. So if there was any kind of area that didn't look like it stamped very well, I stamped the image more than one time. I'm going to be using the raccoon, the little mouse, the squirrel, the mushrooms, and the tree stump, and the balloon. This is a birthday card. You can make the greeting there's lots of different options with this stamp set, or you can combine or use an entirely different greeting depending on what you want to do. I'm going to start by coloring in my raccoon. I'm starting with the warm gray 5 marker. The markers I'm using are going to be noted here in the upper left corner of the screen. Then I'm going in with the warm gray 3. When coloring critters that are shades of gray or black, I tend to like the warm gray markers much better than the other gray options. They have a little bit more of a brown tone, I guess I want to say, and it looks a little bit more realistic. I used the warm gray 0, 0, and 1 for the lighter areas, filling in a little bit darker there, blending that out. And then I am going in and creating some dots with additional colors. So I used warm gray 4, 3, 5, and 6 here, and just built on those colors. I did add a little darkening first, blend that out, and then I went in and added the dot detail, adding some dark shading lines as well with my darker warm gray colors, and then my even darker color, which is the warm gray 8. Go back into the little raccoon's mask and darken it up a bit as well. And then I'll go in and darken up the rest of the body. I always like to start lighter and work my way darker. That way it doesn't get too dark. It's easy to go darker, but not near as easy to try to lighten up an image. Again, I'm going to add some dot detail. I'm starting with the warm gray 4. I'll do a little warm gray 5 to darken up a few areas as well. And then I am kind of following the lines of the stamp and adding just some darker little areas here and there. For the mouse, I started with R20 and just added a little pink to the cheek and the center of the ears. Then I'm using warm gray 4 for the body, and then I'm going to go in with warm gray 5 to darken up a few areas, and back with 4 to lighten, or blend it out rather. And then I'm adding some dots with the warm gray 6. If you get a dot there like I did near the eye that was too dark, you can go back in with your lighter color and blend that out. For the tree stump, I'm starting with E55. I'll color in the entire image, and then I'm going to go in with E57 and darken up some of those places there where I want some shadowing. And then E49 is going to be my darkest color. Blend out everything with my lightest, which is E55. If it blends out too much, I can go back in with E57 to darken up some of those areas as well. For the balloon, I'm going to be using R24, 46, and 39. It's a pretty small balloon. I colored in the whole thing with R24, added a lot of R46, and then just a very tiny bit of 39 before blending the whole thing out with R24 and going back in with R46 in the areas that needed it. I'll be using the same colors then for the solid portion of the mushrooms, adding little bits of 46 here and very tiny little bit of R39 rather. Blend it all out with R24. For the spots on the mushroom, I'm using Y11, Y15, and YR23. Can blend that out with my lighter yellow colors. The underside of the mushroom, I'm coloring that all with R39. And then where the top of the mushroom kind of overlaps there, I just drew a little line with warm gray 8 to darken it so you could see the difference between the top of the mushroom and the inside. The small mushrooms are colored much the same, not near as much blending for those since they're so small. And I ended up going back over my tree stump with those exact same colors I used before. Felt like it needed darkened up a bit. I'm using warm gray 1, 3, and 4 for the stem on the mushrooms, and going back in and adding some little dots here and there. Then I'll color in the squirrel. This is my last image for my card. I'm starting with E31, and that will be my base color for the entire squirrel. I started really light and I ended up darkening him quite a bit. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go with this. I'm using E17 now, which is more the color that I was wanting for the squirrel. I'm going to blend out that as best I can. Those colors are pretty far apart, so they're not going to blend that great. I went in with E55 then to darken up a lot of the squirrel, and E17. Once I have him kind of blended the way I want, using a little R20 for the insides of the ears, I'm going in with E57 to add some dots, and E17. And this is much more the color that I was going for. I left the E31 for the stomach of the squirrel to keep that nice and light. And then E49, I'm following some of the lines of the squirrel as well as some of those areas where there'd naturally be some shadowing and darkening them up. So just a very little bit of this E49. I taped the coordinating Woodland Gifts Creative Cuts dies over my images, hold them in place with a little post-it tape, and then I'm running them through my Big Shot die cutting machine to cut those all out. The only image that I will need to cut twice is the small mushroom then. So I'll pop out all of these and then run it through one more time for that small mushroom. I'm using a powder tool on one of the grassy trio borders and then stamping the happy birthday greeting using Versamark ink. And then I'll stamp the just a little something greeting right above that, also with Versamark ink. I use the powder tool so that the embossing powder sticks only to where I have actually stamped and doesn't migrate to anywhere else. I'm using a little white embossing powder on that. I'll heat that up, set that aside for a second while I die cut my clouds. I'm going to die cut the smaller of the Stitched Sky Creative Cuts clouds from vellum, 2 of them from vellum and 1 from white cardstock. Have a trio of clouds there in the background. Now that I have all of the elements for my card, I am ready to put it all together. I'm going to start with the background and build up from the back up. So I'll start with my first border, and I'm going to adhere that just a little bit above the bottom. Go ahead and attach my other border right on top of that, and then start tucking in the critters. Some of them will be in between those 2 layers of grass, some will be sitting in front. Have the squirrel sitting on top of the tree stump. Go ahead and tuck in these little mushrooms, which add a nice pop of color and really help create and balance out the entire scene. Have the raccoon holding the cute little red balloon. Tuck in that final mushroom. For the smaller images, I'm using the Zig glue pen to glue those in place. That's why I'm using acrylic blocks to hold down anything while the glue dries. Adding some little dots of glue there for the vellum cloud. I'm going to darken up all the eyes and noses on the critters using the Sakura black gel pen. And then I will attach the panel, or I'll trim off the excess clouds first. I'm going to flip over that rectangle, snip all of those off, and then attach the rectangle panel to a white card base. I hope you've enjoyed this video showcasing the new Woodland Gifts stamp set and dies from Mama Elephant. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time.